Hi, happy April, everybody. I have a ton of books to talk about today. I have a huge stack of picture books, a bunch of nonfiction that looks really good, and a whole bunch of really awesome graphic novels. We know graphic novels are huge right now. Some middle grade novels, and a huge stack of YA. So let's dig in. P.S. See this behind you? It looks all happy and sunny and beautiful. It's about 10 degrees outside, so don't let it fool you. All right, we're going to start out with this book here. It's called Lost Found, and it's about a scarf. And I just think it is the cutest book ever. Look at this little bear. And so it's about, there are not a ton of words in this book. So it starts out, it just says lost. And all the kids can relate to having a lost scarf, excuse me. And then if you look, I gotta figure out what it is. Okay, there, look, found. So over here, the animals have found it. And it's lost again. So it goes to the whole forest. So first the raccoons get it, and then the beavers get it, and then some other little critter gets it, and then a fox gets it, and then a mouse gets it, and then a ferret gets it, and then some squirrels. Actually, the squirrels are hysterical. They decide to use it as some sort of slingshot. Yeah, it doesn't end well. So it gets lost again, and then it's floating around, and it's kind of lost. And I like these wordless pages. I think they're fun. And then it gets entangled with the animals, and they are fighting on it, and it gets destroyed. And Bear is really sad, because it seems like it's lost for good. And so all the animals take all of the yarn, and look at the bear with his big ball of yarn, and they're going to fix the scarf. And so together, they come together and they knit the scarf back. And then it's found again. So this is a really sweet book. It could be good for story time, for a quiet group, maybe bedtime story. But I just think it's sweet. It's got nice illustrations, and it's a simple concept, something the kids can really relate to, even if we hope not to be wearing scarves for much longer. This book is hilarious. It's called How to Share with Bear. It reminds me of one of my other favorite books called Read to Tiger, which is also hysterical. And I will point out the end papers are adorable. And let's see. So this is about a little boy who makes himself a reading fort. And there are instructions in the back of the book on how to make a reading fort, which is fabulous. So he makes a reading fort, and then he goes to get a flashlight, and there's somebody in his fort. Who is it? It's a bear. There's a bear in his fort. And so he decides, bears like berries. So he has a little trail of berries to lure the bear away. And as he goes back to get his books, the bear gets back in the cave. And this keeps happening. So he decides to go and get a back scratcher for the bear. And as he goes to close the door, the bear goes back in the cave. And then he decides that bears like baths because they like streams. So he runs a bath. But as he's cleaning up, the bear gets back in the cave. And so they keep passing each other. It's hysterical. So they pass each other in the hall. I just think the art is hysterical. And then he decides to dress up like a bee because bears like honey. And it just keeps happening. And he finally is able to get in his fort and read. And then you notice that the bear is actually his brother. And the bear is small and is crying. And so he felt bad for tricking the bear. So he has a cave-in. Because there's not room for two of them in there, right? And so they want to build a bigger cave so both of them can fit. So it actually turns into kind of a cute sibling story. And so they build a giant cave. I don't know if you can see that. The light in here is a little strange. There you go, giant cave. And then in the very back, there's instructions on how to build a cave, which I know a lot of you have talked to you about this, build caves with your kids for story time, and I just think it would be an awesome activity to add if you do this for story time. So this is a cute book for the activity, but it's also cute because it's about siblings and sharing with siblings, which, you know, we can't have enough of those, right? Okay, this book is hysterical. You ready? Whoop. Now, you may know that I'm vegetarian and I don't actually eat bacon, but I think this is hilarious anyway. So it's called Everybody Loves Bacon. And if you look at this, bacon obviously has a little bit of an attitude. You will find out, my friends. Oh, first you got to see the end pages. At first it looked like fire to me, and then I realized it was just bacon. Like a huge side of bacon. Gross. Okay, anyway. So, this is the story of Bacon. Everybody loves Bacon. Bacon's a celebrity. And he's kind of obnoxious. So it's like, you're the best! Can I sit with you? Everyone loves him. And he gets to his head, you know. And the funny thing is you know, if you've been to a restaurant lately, that right now they put bacon on frickin' everything. And so it's kind of a social satire. Maybe not on purpose, but whatever. So Bacon thinks he's hysterical. He has, you know, posters, and he's famous, and he has billboards and T-shirts and whatever. And everyone loves him. And he drives a fancy car, and he has fans. The kids are going to think this is hysterical. And, but his old friends miss him. He's gotten too big for his britches. And, he starts to, like, his old friends miss him, and his new friends are, they have had enough of him because he ignores his friends. He, like, doesn't listen to them when they talk. He thinks he's too cool, whatever. And so, anyway, they say Bacon was the toast of the town, which, again, hilarious, until everybody loves bacon. Okay, it's a little gruesome if you think too hard about it, but the kids will find this hysterical because, you know, they're talking about fame and how obnoxious it is, and you know who actually might like this a lot is teenagers. I feel like you could read this to a bunch of teenagers and they would think it was hysterical. So there you go. Multi-purpose book. All right. Next one. So this book here by Jonathan Bean is This Is My Home. I have to say the art is not my favorite. It's a little too busy for me. But it's about homeschooling, which isn't something that gets written about a lot or isn't the focal point of a lot of picture books. And so I thought that this will be worth looking at. So you'll see that the art is a little busy. Like, I don't really know where to put my eyes. You see that? There's just so much going on. But the kids will like it. So, like, this is my home, and it's my school. What? Are you confused? Allow me to explain. So, this is my mom and my sisters, and they're my classmates and my teacher. So, it's pretty cute, and I think a lot of Vermonters will really like it. This page right here gives me a headache. It's just so busy. This is my classroom, which is great. But you could spend half an hour trying to figure out everything that's going on in it. But, you know, kids like to spend a lot of time with books, so, I don't know. So anyway, they, you know, the kitchen is their classroom, and the piano is their classroom, and the creek is their classroom, their cafeteria is their kitchen, and they have a crabby cafeteria lady who's presumably the mom. They have a big playground, which is this huge tree, which is kind of awesome, and they're all reading. It's very summer reading-esque. And then they talk about the bully, who's the beast. They call the beast, which is their older sister. And they have a trusty school bus, which is the family's minivan, and they take them on field trips to the library or to see animals. And then they say, this is our art room. You know, this is the world. Which I think is kind of sweet. It's a nice message. It's very positive about homeschooling, which I think is good. And it says, sometimes our teacher gets tired really easily, so she calls in for help. And she calls the substitute teacher, who's Dad. Which is a little sexist, because obviously there are a lot of dads who homeschool, and, but, we'll forgive them. And then, the sub helps them with the homework and plays phys ed, and they get tired, and then they do show and tell over dinner, which I think is really sweet, because a lot of families do show and tell over dinner. They just don't call it show and tell, right? You ask the kids, how was your day? What did you do today? And so this they call it part of the classroom, which I think kids will appreciate. And then, astronomy class is out in the backyard, and English lesson is in bed, reading a book. And then they show in the back, their schedule of all the kids. Let's see that. Of all of their different subjects. And then in the very back is information about the author and her homeschooling experience. So I think if you have homeschoolers in your library, which if you're in Vermont, you probably do, this could be a good addition. Like I said, the illustrations, they bug me a little bit, but if they don't bother you, then it's perfect. And kids, I think, are more forgiving than I am. But it looks like a good addition. Like I said, there's not a lot of homeschooling books out there. And this one's really positive, which I think we need. This one is adorable. So it's the Not-So-Faraway adventure. And it's about a girl and her grandfather, which I know, and the Red Clover Committee knows this too. I am a sucker for grandparent books. There are 2 of them on the Red Clover list. And anyway, it's really cute. The best thing about this book is the artwork. If you look at this, it's kind of collage art. And so this is Theo and her grandfather, and he has an old trunk. With lots of interesting keepsakes. And so she likes to look through his keepsakes. And then it's his birthday, his papa's birthday. And she's trying to figure out what she can get him. But he says he has everything. And it's kind of implied that the grandmother has passed away recently. And so she says, what do you want to do for your birthday tomorrow? And he says, Nana and I used to always went out for a meal. I remember once we drove for a whole day to get to our little restaurant on the beach by the ocean. We had the best clam chowder ever. And so little Theo decides to go on an adventure with him. And so she gets the streetcar map, and she draws a map so you can have a little activity if you wanted to. And they figure out how, obviously the grandfather doesn't drive, so they're trying to figure out how they can get to the beach and have a day just to themselves. And I love these pictures. Look how cute that is. So they go on the streetcar, and she's kind of in charge. And so they go and they try to find the beach, and the pictures of what they pass by it's gorgeous. And so they have this adventure, and they go and they find the ocean. And them holding hands is just so cute. And so they go to the ocean, and they go in the sand, and then they go to a restaurant, and they have gazpacho, and they have this really fun time. And then in the end, they get home. So you're starting to wonder, does she have a family, more family, or is it just him? And then when you get home, the whole family has a surprise for him. And so, this was just her special day with her papa. So they came home, and there's a cupcake for him, and they celebrate. And, but she has her little, her special adventure that she had with him. So she takes the map that she drew, and she puts it in the trunk with all of his treasures. I just think this book is really, really sweet. A lot of grandparent books, like Sally Anderson always talks about how the grandparents in books always look so old and frail. And this grandfather doesn't at all. And, he might be a little sad because he lost his wife, but this little girl is just so close to him and so cute. And I think their little adventure is fabulous. So I think this could inspire kids to take an adventure with their family. You could also do map making with them, treasures, all kinds of stuff. All right, this is a really young book, but it's about adoption, and I think it's It's one of the youngest books I've seen about adoption, one of the most innocent, and you might need this in your library. So it's about a mom who's a cat who adopts a dog. And it's written in first person, so it's when I first came to live with my new mom, I was nervous. This would be my home. So it's told from the dog's perspective. So there's no humans in it, so I think that could help soften the story a little bit. And, he says, I've never had my own room before. And there's no genders in this either, except for the mom. And I was worried that I didn't look like mom, so I tried to fix it. He's worried, so he tries. Which is sad, but, it happens. Mom says I didn't need fixing. She likes that we're different. Actually, I think I like it too. There's not a lot of words on each page. And she says, who cares what anyone else thinks anyway? Mom plays with me and takes care of me and does all the things that Mom do. Even the things that make me mad. Right? I like the honesty. It's good stuff. Sometimes I don't like Mom. Sometimes I feel really sad. And Mom promises we'll be okay. She says if we try a little harder, tomorrow will be better. And it's just a sweet, sweet book. And then at the very last page, it says we are learning how to be a family. So this could be read as just an animal story. It could be read as a pet adoption story. But I think the better use for it is for kids who are really young and who are adopted, especially kids who don't look like their parents, who are maybe different race or different ethnicities, and are trying to grapple with these issues. This is the youngest, like I said, the youngest book like this I've ever seen. It's really, really sweet, and not a lot of big words, so a new reader could definitely enjoy it. All right, on a totally different note, this book is awesome. It's called The Secret Subway. And if you look a little closer, look at this art. It's like, I don't know, is it clay? Painted clay, I think? Yeah, and they're like little dolls. And this is based on a true story, and it's a true story of this underground train that they had in New York City in, what year was it? I think it was the 1800s. I can't remember, but it was well before the real subway, the actual subway of today, was built. But he had this idea, this man had this idea to build a tube, and he wanted it to deliver mail. And he thought that if he could get people to use it for delivering mail, that it would become this great idea and people would want to ride in it. And so he bought the land and got the plan, and then secretly his men tunneled underground. You can see that art. It's fabulous. There's a lot of words on each page, but I think it's really good. It's like, for 58 days and nights, Beach's men tunneled beneath the cobblestones, sewers, and pipes, moving 16 inches of earth with every press of their tunneling machine up to 8 feet a day. The kids are going to love this. So he made this tunnel, and then he has to figure out, how to get people to come. And so he has a party, and he invites everybody to see his little, rocket tube. And if you look at that, and there's his tunnel. And this is based on a real story. And so they rode in this little tube train, and they swooshed and everything, and it was all exciting. But he wanted to expand after that. He wanted to build a subway, and the governor said no, absolutely not. And it took years before the subway was ever built. So what happened was that this program didn't go any further, and so they closed it up. I think they might have filled it in. It closed in 1874. And then in 1912, when they started construction on the New York subway that we know today, they found the old tunnel and the old train. The kids are going to love this. And it's based on a true story, and it's about subways, which are fabulous and fascinating, and I think the art is just so good. So I think this is a really good story. This would be for older kids, obviously, not for young kids story time, because it's pretty long, but definitely for a classroom, or for older kids looking for something a little more substantial. I highly recommend it. All right, next one will not be a hard sell at all. This is the newest one by this author, whose name I can never pronounce, and it's Let's Play, and it's in the same tradition as Press Here and Mix It Up, and you'll love it. It's about this thought again, and he goes all over the place, and there you go, sold, right? Not hard. Okay, next one is hysterical. You need this book. Are you ready? Old MacDonald Had a Truck. So this is the theme. It's the song, Old MacDonald, but it's about trucks. And are you ready? If I was still doing story time, I would totally use this book. And it goes like this. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on that farm, he had an excavator! With a dig here and a dig there. And then next he has a front loader. E-I-E-I, whoa, with a scoop here and a scoop there. And then he has a whole bunch of trucks, like steamroller. This thing is huge. With a squish smash here and a squish smash there. And then he has a cement mixer. And then he has, the last one is a truck, and it's a monster truck, which kids are going to love. There you go. So, you need this. You already know the tune, and it's going to be great for story time and great for kids who love trucks, and there are a lot of them out there. So there you go. Sold, right? Yeah, so good. All right, this one's really sweet. It's called The Bear and the Piano, and it's by David Litchfield, and it is so sweet. I like the art in this one. Look at that forest scene. All right, so this is about a bear who finds a piano in the forest. So he starts playing it, and he starts to get really, really good. And everyone comes to see him play. But then one day, he loves it. Then one day, someone says, come to the city with us. There's lots of people there making music. You can play grand pianos in front of hundreds of people, and hear sounds so beautiful they'll make your fur stand on end. The bear knew that if he left the forest, the other bears would be very sad, but he longed to explore the world beyond the woods. And so he went to the city. And he played. And he played in the huge concerts and theaters, wild applause, standing ovation. And you can see all his clippings. Sorry, I'm moving everything sideways today. There you go. Lots of clippings, and he's famous. He has headlines. But he missed his home. He missed his friends. And so he decides to go back. But sadly, when he goes back to the forest, the piano is gone. And so he thinks his friends got mad at him, or had forgotten him. And so he gets really, really, really sad. And then he sees one of his bear friends, and he tries to get his attention. And then he notices that they have like a little monument to him, the piano and all his clippings in the forest. And so he realized that they were proud of him, and they'd been waiting for him to come back. So he had another forest. So I just think this is adorable. It's about being able to leave home and come back again and still have the family that you loved still there for you. I know, a little deep for a picture book, but it's there. You don't even have to squint to see it. All right. Next is a very small and hilarious book called Treats. She has written a bunch of books, including, I can't remember, Ball. She wrote Ball. This book is called Treat. There is only one word in this book. It is treat. And it's about this little dog. This book I feel like would be a good one to practice if you have teens doing story time or volunteers doing story time and they need to practice their inflection and their enthusiasm. This is a good one for it because there's only one word, but you can really make the story come alive with one word. So it's treat, treat, treat. So he tries to find the treat everywhere. You know, he finds his little girl, treat, treat. And then, you know, is disappointed every time because she eats all her treats. And then she goes for a picnic and eats her lunch. And he's like, treat, 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 treat. No. And then he finds the grandmother and wants a treat, but realizes those are her false teeth in the jar. Not a treat. Sad. Then he finds somebody else. He goes to the baby cradle, and there's nothing there for him. He goes to the laundry room. There's nothing there for him. There are toys in his bowl. Look at this. It's so sad. Look at his little bowl. Sorry, I've got everything crooked. Look. Tragedy. So anyway, he goes through the whole house. He goes to outer space, trying to find treats, and they're everywhere. And he's having nightmares about never getting treats again, which I believe real dogs actually do. And then finally, the little girl wises up and gives him a giant special treat. So, right, not a lot going on here, but really funny. I think the kids will like it. All right, another one that's really cute is this one. It's Animal Word Pairs. It's Linda Sue Park, who I adore, and this is a vocabulary book, but it's also animals, and it's funny. So it's almost like poetry. So some of the examples are Yaks yak, right? And there's little definitions in the top, like right there. It says, you know, yak is to talk. So each word has a little definition for you. So there's yaks, flounders, flounder, quails, quail, apes, ape, dogs, dog, dogs, badgers, badger, parrots, parrot, rams, ram. You get the point. And so all of these animals, and then in the end, kids, kid, which is funny. And then at the end, there's a glossary with all of the words. So if you want to do it as a little vocabulary lesson, it could be cute too. Mostly, I think the kids will find it hilarious, as I do. All right, this is the last picture book. It's called Cricket Song, and it's an adorable bedtime story. This is really good for pajama story time or for bedtime. It's beautifully done. And it's about the nighttime sounds. So as the sun sails west, bringing the night, the evening breeze rises to meet it. The breeze carries the song of crickets to your room. So the little boy is sleeping. And then they kind of go beyond the house and they start talking about the frogs, and they're puffing their throats, and the fox sniffing the rabbit, and there's a vole hiding, and there's an owl, and otters, which is just adorable. Look at these little otters. I have another otter book too, I think. So there's otters dozing and drifting, and then whales singing underneath the ocean, and there's fishermen who are tying up their boats for the night, and parakeets who are roosting in a tree, and then there's cows that are in the yard, and they're sleeping, just like you, to the song of the crickets brought on the evening breeze. So it's basically about the sounds of the evening, and it's a little tropical, but it's adorable. I think it could be a good bedtime story. Like I said, it's very soothing. We like that. Okay, so now I have a couple of picture book nonfiction, and then I have some older nonfiction, and then I'll move on to graphic novels and other stuff. So the first one I'm going to talk about is it's The Tree in the Courtyard, and it's the story of Anne Frank told from the point of view of a tree, and it's very innocent, and it could be an interesting introduction to war and to the story of Anne Frank for young ones. it's gorgeously done, and it's basically, there's no talk about, what was happening politically because it's a tree, right? So the tree just basically describes what she sees. So she sees the war, but of course she doesn't know anything about why or what's going on. And then she meets this girl named Anne, right? And then the girl and her family live in the house, and she sees the girl's face from time to time, and the cat, and Peter. And then there were bombs, and the tree didn't understand why there were bombs. So it's very innocent. I mean, of course, we know the backstory, so we know why it's so sad, but I think for young kids, it's really just a story of, like, the sadness of war. And so, there's pictures of her family through the trees, and the girl gets thinner and thinner, and, the tree tries to cheer her up by making her blossoms extra bright, and then, the day that she's taken away, that Aunt Frank's taken away, the tree guards her diary. And then she witnesses the father coming back and being broken up about his family, but finding the diary that the tree guarded, right? And then after that, things happened and more children lived in that house. And then the tree died. She was struck by lightning, and I think this was true. I'm pretty sure. And in the end, it's very, very sweet. This is just like the girl she passed into history, just like the girl she lives on. This is she, the tree. Her seeds and saplings have been planted with love. One grows in New York City, where the Twin Towers once stood. Another grows at an Arkansas high school. Still more grow in England, Argentina, and France, all around the world. Though the new trees are still young, children come to visit. They read the girl's words about a chestnut in a courtyard glistening with dew and touch the thin trunks. They are so entranced they cannot speak. So obviously a lot of this is true. It's a very, very sweet book. I definitely think it's worth buying, especially if you have Anne Frank fans in your library. Definitely. All right. Next is a little less sad. This book is about Casey Stengel. And baseball season's starting. Well, it was supposed to start yesterday, but it got snowed out. And this is about a manager, which I think is awesome. I didn't actually know that much about him. He won like 5 World Series for the Yankees, but in the 50s. But he was a troublemaker, which I think the kids will like. He was a jokester, and he was always pulling pranks on people. And so as a player, not terribly successful, but funny. Eventually he got fired. So he decided to become a manager. And he's a really, really good manager. And he does all sorts of goofy stuff, some intentional and some not, which I think the kids will find deeply amusing. And he goes on to manage the Yankees, and he is really good. There you go. Him, I love this picture. Him with his World Series rings. All those fingers. And so he was manager of the Yankees from 1949 to 1960, which was a big time in baseball. And so this story is just really cute, and I think kids who love baseball are going to like this story. There's a bunch of statistics, there's a lot of words in the back, glossary, and I think this could be good for your reluctant readers, or for kids who just, like nonfiction, or who are obsessed with baseball and only want to read about baseball. This one could be a good book in your list. Also, if you need biographies, this could be a good one. It's a little light on, facts, but it could be good for, like, lower elementary, or for beginning of a project. Another baseball book, you can tell that the season's starting. This is about the legend of Edith Houghton, and she played for the Bobbies in the 1920s. And so she was 10 years old when she started playing for the Bobbies. I didn't even know that was allowed. Look at that. And the Bobbies were known for their bob haircuts, and she got one, but she was only 10 years old, so the uniform didn't really fit. And she was really, really good, so good that she got recruited to go to Japan and play. And so she went on this grand adventure, and they got to play baseball on the ship that took them to Japan, which is awesome, even today, right? And then she goes to Japan, and she plays. These pictures are just amazingly gorgeous. And eventually she comes home and comes back to her family. You start to wonder a little bit, like, where is her family? But they're there, and, you know, she really loved it, but she was young. And so she comes home, and she makes quite a bit of money. And she becomes, I think, the first woman professional scout in the Major League Baseball, which is awesome. And she just seems like the feistiest character. There's a ton of information in the back about her and real pictures. I think the kids will really like this. Again, you know, for your baseball fans, for kids who like just spunky stories, or if you need some more biographies in your section, it could be a good one. Or for something for Women's History Month. I knew I had an otter book. Here's the other otter book. I have a friend who's obsessed with otters, so I always pick up otter books. This one's really, really cute. So it's about otters, and it's told both. It's one of those that's told both as a story, but has facts in it as well. So, you know, it's kind of poetic about how they swim and skip and splash, but there's also facts about them. You know, and it's in a different font. So if you look over here, there you go, you can see the facts. So you can read it as a story if you want to, or you can look at the facts. And the cool thing about this book is that there's an index. So kids could use it for a research project if they want to, and just look at the facts. Or you could read it as a storybook. There's a ton of information in here, and lots of really, really cute pictures. So could be a good addition to the collection. Now I'm going to go a little older. This one, Sally Ride. It's a photobiography, which is wonderful. You know, I feel like there's been a lot of biographies of her over the years, but this one is gorgeous. Look at these photos. They're just absolutely stunning. So I think even if you have a Sally Ride biography, it's probably a little old on the older side, and I think this one could be good. Trying to turn the page. There you go. Aren't they just beautiful pictures? I know. And I think in the end, yeah, it goes all the way up to 2014, when Tam O'Shaughnessy, who wrote this book, accepts the Medal of Honor on her behalf, which is awesome. So, awesome biography. This could be good for middle school. It could be for younger because it's a photobiography. I think younger kids could get a lot out of it, but definitely worth taking a look at, especially if you're in a school or in a library that has a lot of projects and needs some substantial biographies. All right, another one more kind of middle school level biography. Actually, this one may be a little younger. This is the story of Henry Bergh, who founded the ASPCA. You know, I've never even heard of him. And so I'm so excited this was written. It's written in kind of a chapter book format. So there's large type, lots of pictures. There are a few photos, but most of it's drawings. And it's all about how he started the fight against animal abuse. And so this was in the 1800s, and he started, you know, witnessing all these horrible things that were being done to animals, which could upset some people. And also about the circus, the way the circus treated animals, which is something that upsets me a lot. And so he started the ASPCA. And there are lots of chapters, and there's resources, and there's a bibliography. So I think there is a child out there who really needs to read this book. If you have that child, give me a call. I can send this to you. But I think this could be a good a good book for your collection if you have animal lovers among your readers. Could be good. Okay, that's it for nonfiction. I'm going to move on to graphic novels and then chapter books. I have one nonfiction graphic novel. It's The Human Body Theater, and I love this book. It's a graphic novel about the human body. And it's kind of narrated by the skeleton, which I think is perfect. Each chapter is, a different system of the body. It's got plenty of gore in here for the kids who, love the fart jokes. And there's a page about diarrhea and stuff on, germs and whatever. But the pictures are not especially gruesome. They just talk about gross stuff. There's a whole chapter on the bladder, which, is something that doesn't get talked about in most anatomy books, especially for children. But who doesn't want to know about the bladder, right? There is a chapter on reproduction, and it's told in a very humorous kind of way. There's no pictures of sex or anything like that in it. Instead, the uterus is given a face and looks very angry when she's on her period. And there's a little bit of talk about erections and menstruation, things like that, and about how babies develop. So that is in there if that's a problem in your library, and it might affect where you want to put this. It's definitely nonfiction. I mean, all the information is there. It's heavy. It's a big book. It's got to be a couple hundred pages long, 232. And there's a ton of there's glossary words on the back, too, which is fabulous. So it could be used as a reference book. It could just be a fun book to have out. Whatever it is, I think this is a quality book. Got really, really good reviews, and it's kind of fun. All right, next is, I'm going to start with the younger graphic novels first. So this one's called Little Robot, and this little girl here, she reminds me of Lilo from Lilo and Stitch. And I think part of it is her sidekick. So she's wandering in the forest one day, and she finds a robot. And she becomes friends with this robot. I think the art is awesome. It's very round and happy. And so they have adventures. There are very few words in this book. I think mostly they're sound effects. But there are some words. So this could be good for your reluctant readers, your kids who are learning to read, kids who like, early graphic novels and need something kind of innocent. This is definitely good. I mean, I think the robot gets lost at one point, and then, they're friends. It's all about their little friendship. They're really cute. So this looks like it could be good. I'm not sure if it's a series, but it might be. It looks very, very sweet. All right, next. This one is a series, I know. Jean Luen Yang. It's a tongue twister. He is the ambassador for children's literature. You've probably seen his picture all around. He's a master storyteller, and he has a new series called Secret Coders, which is awesomely nerdy. It's all done in 2-color, black and green, and it's about this school called Stately Academy, where they solve mysteries using coding skills. So it's a mystery, there are friends, and there's math and science. Who could have thunk it? It's going to be a series, and it could be a really good, it's substantial. It's a couple hundred pages. So for kids who need something to tide them over, between the baby mouse kind of days and Squish, before they get into the YA comics, this could be kind of a good middle ground. Okay, one more graphic novel. This one is a little bit older, and this is a memoir, a fictionalized memoir, and it's about a young girl growing up in Turkey in the 1980s. Now, I haven't read the story, and it got decent reviews, not stellar reviews, but I love the art. The art is fantastic. So it's mixed media. It's super colorful. It's a little small. I mean, it's definitely for older kids. But it looks like a good story. There's definitely a little bit about, the tumult that was in Turkey in the 1980s and what it was like. And you can see her 80s fashion styling. And, of course, Dare to Disappoint smacks of adolescent troubles. So there's definitely going to be some of that in there. But it looks like a good story. And if you have kids in your library who like this kind of stuff, then it might be a good purchase for you. All right. Ready for chapter books? I know, I've been talking for 45 minutes. I haven't even gotten to chapter books. I feel your pain. All right. First, Linda Urban has a new one out called Weekends with Max and His Dad. This looks like one of those stories. It's short. It's sweet. It tackles an issue like divorce and spending weekends with a different parent. And I've heard it's amazing. I haven't read it yet, but it looks unbelievably sweet, and it got stellar reviews. So I think this one could be a good one for your library, especially if you have kids who love Linda Urban, which doesn't. And then if you have kids who are spending time in two homes. This one here looks very sweet. If you read The Question of Miracles, this is the same author. And this is about a kid, and you have to read this flap. It's hilarious. Things that aren't fair. Number 1, living in the coach. They're in like a camper, and they're traveling. Number 2, getting the wrong dog. Number 3, having Rex for a brother. Number 4, sharing one stupid cell phone. So this is about this kid who thinks nothing is fair, and they're in an RV, and they're moving to their grandmother's house, and he's not happy. So I haven't read it, so I don't know where it goes, but I got good reviews, and I'm guessing based on The Question of Miracles, there's probably some sweet stories, probably a little bit of family trouble and some sibling issues, but it looks like a really sweet story, and I love the cover. It's so colorful. All right, next, mystery. I have 2 mysteries set in the 1920s. I don't know what it's about, but this one, Finders Keepers, looks really fun. This one is about these friends who live in a place called Whitefish Lake, and his parents are thinking about, they're having money problems. They want to sell the cabin, and he doesn't want that. And so they plan a scheme to keep the sellers away. You can imagine how that goes. And then they hear about a hidden fortune left in the lake, hidden behind by Al Capone. And so they decide not only to scare people away, but also to look for the fortune that might help their parents keep the house. So it looks like a, classic adventure kind of mystery story. With plenty of intrigue. This is the same author as the Graham Cracker Plot, which had some, family stuff in it, which this one definitely does as well, and a solid mystery, all with the kids. So if you like that, if your kids like that kind of stuff, this could be good for them. The next one actually takes place in the 1920s. It's by Beth Fantaschi, who wrote Jessica's Guide to Dating on the Dark Side, which is one of the funniest books I've ever read in my life. So this one looks really, really funny. It's a 1920s Chicago, which gangs, guns, gangsters. And this is about a kid she's a news girl. She sells newspapers, but she wants to be a journal. And she wants to be a famous crime reporter. And she stumbles upon a murder scene, so this book was recommended, I think, for grades 4 and up. So I'm guessing the murder scene is not too gruesome. But use your judgment. So she wants to solve this murder case. So she tracks clues and gets really close to discovering who killed this gangster. So I'm guessing that from the reviews I read that it's pretty innocent, but it's kind of hardcore. Murder mystery from middle grade. Yeah, we'll see. It looks cute. You might need it if you have mystery lovers in your library. All right, so in that kind of tween area is this book. David Class is fabulous. This book looks hysterical, and it's about this high school, where they have a crazy new rule, which is everyone has to be on a team. But the main character, Jack, is not a jock. He doesn't do sports, and he and his friends don't have any athletic abilities. So they decide to make everybody lose, because that's what they're good at. And so they attract all these attentions trying to make their teams lose. And it looks hysterical. You know, it's about the kind of jock mentality, and the whole sports are the end-all be-all of school. So this book looks interesting, a little more innocent than the other books I have here. So we're moving on to YA books. I know I have so many books, it's crazy. All right, number 1, the new Jack Gantos. I adore Jack Gantos. If you've never met him, I highly recommend that you go meet him wherever you can. I think he lives in Boston, and he works at the Boston Public Library, writing, and he's hysterical. This is a fictionalized memoir, and it's about 14-year-old Jack. So if you've read Hole in My Life, you know that he got into some serious trouble as a young person. He ended up as a drug smuggler, and he ended up in jail, and all this crazy stuff happened. This is before that. So he is in Fort Lauderdale, and he wants to follow this kind of pyromaniac, and he's desperate for these crazy, dangerous experiences. And I heard great things about it, and if it's anything like his other books, it's going to be hysterical and very real. So you might need that one. And if it's like his other books as well, it probably will cross into your adult population, so you might even want to shelve it with your adult books if that's where people look for his stuff. Next, this is the new Beth Cappart. I love Beth Cappart. She has written a lot of books in verse, but this one is prose. And this takes place on an island, I think off of New Jersey. And this is about a superstorm, which is interesting. But it's not a dystopic superstorm as usual. So it's about a girl named Mira, and her brother has some medical problems, so her parents are on the mainland taking care of him, and she is dealing with teenagers' things. And they are predicting this big storm, so she, closes the windows and does what they normally do, and, they don't really take it that seriously, because they survive all kinds of stuff. And it turns out to be this enormous superstorm, and she ends up getting hurt, and people are lost, and all sorts of crazy stuff happens. And so, she's trying to get a hold of her family and find her friends, and there's these strangers. And so it sounds like it's kind of a story of chaos and trying to find yourself. It looks like the teenagers would like it. This one looks hysterical. I woke up dead at the mall. So this is about a girl. I can't remember what her name is. Sarah. And she's woken up dead at the Mall of America. She dropped dead while trying on bridesmaids' dresses. Mango taffeta, so that's what she's wearing. And she has found herself in the Mall of America, and there are other murder victims. She's been murdered. And there's other murder victims in the mall as well, and they're supposed to be preparing for the afterlife. But she can't figure out who the heck would have murdered her. She's like the most boring person ever. So she tries to figure out who murdered her, but of course there's all sorts of funny teen drama, including a cute boy and, whatever. It looks hysterical, it looks frothy and funny, and I think your kids will love it. So I definitely will be reading it. Here's another funny one. The Head of the Saint. This looks interesting. This looks like a Pete Houghton kind of book. It's a little bit about religion, so if that's touching in your community, you might want to keep an eye on that when you recommend this book. But it's about a 14-year-old who lives in Brazil, but he's homeless, and he's living in a giant hollow concrete head of Saint Anthony. And he didn't know what it was when he crawled into it, but it's keeping him warm and dry. And so he lives there, and he starts to hear this singing in the head, and he likes it, so he stays there. But then he starts to hear the prayers of people praying to the saint, And so what he does, he wants them to shut up because he wants to hear the music. And so he starts answering their prayers. And the reviews say it's hysterically funny. So there you go. Maybe you have to have a twisted sense of humor like me. I don't know. All right, this one, Save Me, Kurt Cobain. This is a little obscure, but I think it's interesting. Maybe it's because I'm a child of the 80s. I don't know. This is about a girl who never knew her mother. She was abandoned. And then she starts to learn some stuff about her mother. And she convinces herself that Kurt Cobain is not only still alive, but might be her father, which can be troubling when you're a teenager. And so she lives in Seattle, and she's trying to, figure out where she came from. Her name is Nico. Is awesome. Anyway, this looks like a sweet kind of story. It would help if kids knew who Kurt Cobain was, I think. But if not, that's cool. I'm sure it can be kind of summed up in a couple of sentences. It looks like an interesting story. All right, next, James Preller has a new one out. If you haven't read Bystander, his other book, you should read it. It's basically about bullying. And this book is about cyberbullying, and I have high hopes for it. It looks awesome. So this is about a boy whose name is Sam, and Sam goes to this school where they have this website where they torture this kid that they don't like. I think her name is Melanie. And they post all this crap about her and make fun of her and whatever. And they kind of take turns and are like, they bully him into participating. And they're like, it's your turn to post trash on this wall. So he does. And he eventually becomes friends with her. But he, in order to be accepted, he still posts this stuff on the walls of these websites. And then she kills herself. And so now this whole thing is kind of told in a flashback, like what could I have done and did I contribute to her suicide? And so it's all about bullying and kids and how mean they are. It's short, as Preller's books tend to be. It's like 200 pages. Really, really good discussion books. I can't wait to read it. I bet it's going to be great. I would say middle school, high school, you need it. Bullying is a serious subject. All right, next, The Serpent King. This one deals with things like religion and bullying. So this is about a kid who is, how old is he? He's a high school student, and his name is Dill, and his father is a Pentecostal minister. And he's trying to get him, his father wants him to handle poisonous rattlesnakes for some reason. Then he has to, so he has this kind of issue with his dad at home, but then at school he gets tortured and bullied by the other students who think things about his father. So he has to defend him at school, and then he comes home and he's got this kind of uncomfortable relationship. And at the same time, he's got these friends with these kind of outcast kids, and they are looking forward to after high school and what's going to happen, and are they going to split apart. So it's a coming-of-age story, but it's also about fathers and sons, and there's this religious aspect that looks interesting. It's a hefty book, but if you have kids who like this kind of serious stuff, they might like this one. All right, we're getting down to it. This one here, some of the parts, looks hardcore, but interesting. This is a story about a girl named Tally, and her older brother has passed away for a few months before, and she's not dealing with it very well. And then she finds out that her brother was an organ donor, and it was something that her parents knew about, and obviously it was her brother's choice, but she had no idea. And so she finds a letter, one of those thank you letters from the transplant coordinator, and so she wants to track down the people who got his organs to see if maybe she can help grieve. So it's another grief book, but it's got a little interesting twist. It looks like it could be interesting, and I know you have kids who like this kind of stuff. I just know it. All right, we're turning the corner into some darker stuff. Sarah Rees Brennan has a new book. It's called Tell the Wind and Fire. This is a retelling of The Tale of Two Cities, which I have to admit I've never actually read. I think that's okay. Anyway, so there's the city's divided. There's the light and the dark. And the light is luxurious and opulent and fabulous, and the dark is terrible and fierce. And this is about a girl named Lucy. She was born in the dark half, but somehow has wormed her way over into the light, and now she's a celebrity and has a rich boyfriend. And she wants to keep her head down, but her boyfriend has this kind of secret. And so there's all these secrets between them, and they're trying to find their place, and they really want to be on the the light side, but maybe they don't belong there. It's going to be fabulous. You can just tell. All right, next, The Detour. I love S.A. Bodine. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What was the last one called? The Compound. Oh, right. So The Raft. Wonderful. The Compound, The Gardener. Such creepy stuff. This one looks fantastic. This is told kind of in the tradition of Misery. I love how this kind of teen horror is developing. It's not dystopia, it's actual horror. And it's not quite Stephen King, but it's like pre-Stephen King, because I think there's an audience for it. I love this stuff. So this is about an YA author who is very full of herself, and she goes to an A-list writer's retreat, but she ends up on a detour and ends up getting kidnapped and held in a house by these fans who won't let her go. So, like Misery, although the reviews say that it's less horror, more like thriller. So I don't think that her feet will be chopped off, but it might be equally creepy. So, and there's a hint that there's like some sort of story about the mother and daughter, like why they're doing this. So it looks fabulous. And the last one, are you ready? Before I lose my voice. So I have a secret. Are you ready? I love Alexander Gordon Smith. Love his books. He wrote what is it called? Escape from Furnace series, which, if you haven't read those, Lockdown, Solitary, Death Sentence, so good. So flippin' creepy. Love it. So this one looks just as creepy, maybe even creepier. It's called The Devil's Engine, Hellraisers. This is going to be a series, I think. And it's just creepy as all get out. So this is about a kid who lives in New York City, and he gets trapped. He's an asthmatic, kind of nerdy kid, and he gets trapped in this firefight with these nightmarish creatures. And in order to save himself, he bands together with this squad of secret soldiers. And what the thing is that they have sold their souls, their lives, basically, to the Devil's Engine. And the Devil's Engine is this mystical thing that will give you power and help you, but you have to devote your life to it. And so that's what he does to survive. It looks creepy and fabulous, and I can't wait to read it. So I know you probably have someone in your library who needs this. Alexander Gordon Smith stuff is just fabulous. This one's definitely more high school than the Furnace series. The Furnace is more middle school. But I'll be up late at night reading this one. All right. Are we all done? All right. This is my contact information. Definitely drop me a line if there are books that I should be reading or books that you recommend. If you have opinions, comments, anything, just definitely let me know. Summer is the time where I get to choose my own books to read. Woo! The book lists are complete for the year. So I hope you have a fabulous April, everyone, and I'll see you next month.